What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Take 3 podcast. I say another episode. It's the first episode of the 2022-2023 NFL offseason. We kind of took a little 3-4 month break, gave ourselves some rest, some career moves that we were doing. And then we kind of made a long-term projection of how we wanted to continue to build this podcast. And that's where we kind of arrived at this point where we were like, let's solely focus on the NFL. We tried to do NBA. We tried to do a little bit of golf last year, but we were like, why don't we just make this 100% NFL and just keep it rolling. So we got that time off, formulated a plan, and now we're back similar to how last year we went in through every team, every division throughout the offseason, July and August, and just covered them, all the moves they made and where we see each team going. But before we kind of get into this thing, it's good to be back. How are you doing, Alex? It's kind of weird being back, to be honest. It's been so long, but it's good to get back in and get going again.
Yeah, super excited to be back. I think it's been 3 or 4 months, a little longer than we expected. Like Brandon said, made good career moves. We're going to focus on NFL moving forward. And I'm just excited to be back, recording again, talking some football. What's not to like, really?
Yeah, for sure, dude. It's literally, we're a month from, it's July 12th now. We're like a month away from preseason starting. We're like a week away from training camp getting going. So it's really like, I don't know, it's getting into football season. It's super exciting for football season. Obviously, as a football fan, as an Eagles fan, like a lot of stuff going on. But for this episode, we're going to start off covering the AFC East. We kind of did it with a little like slideshow backdrop thing last year. I'm going to try out a different format for this first one. If it doesn't work out, we'll go back to the old. But let's get it unraveled. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen. The first team we're going to cover in the AFC East is on the screen, the New England Patriots. They finished 10-7 last year. Obviously, Bill Belichick still head coach. They had Mac Jones. He was kind of doing his thing a little bit. They obviously ran a lot of the ball, ran and played a lot of boring football last year, but it worked, right? They found a way to win 10 ball games, get into the playoffs. I mean, when you look at the Patriots this offseason, it wasn't really a good offseason when you look at them. They added Cole Strange, left guard. Honestly, when they made the draft pick, I've never heard of the guy, and a lot of people laughed. Questionable. They moved off of. They literally gave Shaq Mason to Tampa Bay, which was crazy, for like a 5th round pick. They gave him away for pennies almost, which takes a hit to their O-line. Other than that, I mean, they added Devontae Parker from Miami. They just traded N'Keal Harry today. He was kind of a bench warmer anyway. So it's like, it's a null, but their weapons, I mean, it's all there. It's kind of, when you look at that offense, at least I do, it's what can Mac Jones do in a year 2? And then you go down to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, big one that they lost J.C. Jackson. He goes out to L.A. Kind of a big hit on that side. We'll see where it goes. Bill Belichick kind of is able to slot different guys in. You see good old Malcolm Butler's back there. My guy Jalen Mills is still rocking back there as well. So, I mean, what do you see when you look at the Patriots just on the outside looking in, before we kind of get into the couple of questions that I have written down for the Patriots? What do you expect out of them? Did you like their offseason? And where do you see them going?
New England is interesting to me. I was not crazy about their offseason. It's hard to see where they got like really much better. The Cole Strange draft pick was strange, to say the least. I think everybody feels that way. Everyone just kind of looked at it as like, this is clearly a Bill Belichick move, a reach. He could be a stud or he could be a bust, right? I have no idea. To me, this Patriots team is super interesting. It's about Mac Jones. Does he take a leap, right? How much better is he in year 2? He posted some workout videos, which really isn't much, I know, but he does look leaner. He's been in the gym training, gets a full NFL offseason, a full season under his belt to prepare. But like, I have a hard time picking New England to do much this year. I honestly would be surprised if they sneak into the playoffs. I think if they do manage it, it'd be a wild card team. But they snuck in last year. They weren't great. I don't see a ton of areas of improvement. And to me, this season is a lot on Bill Belichick to me, because Robert Kraft has already been on the record talking about they haven't won a playoff game in 3 or 4 seasons. And he was kind of made some comments that seemed like he was kind of questioning Bill's decisions, not as a coach, but as a GM, because the last few drafts haven't been great. So it's really hard to tell where New England's going. For the lack of clarity and on their offseason, to me, I want to say New England's going to be a little bit worse this year. I think they're going to downgrade by like a win or two and finish around 7-8 wins.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like anything. As I went through this and kind of did the research on them, I was like, I look at the Patriots and it was hard to find something that I liked out of them this offseason. They didn't really do anything. They threw everything into last season right when they went out, get Hunter Henry, you get Jonnu Smith, don't really use them. And then obviously you drafted Mac Jones and everything was kind of they hit lightning in the bottle, obviously win 10 games, but then you head into this season and it's like, what's there? I didn't even mention on the fray of things. Obviously, Josh McDaniels heads out to Vegas. So their play caller, Bill Belichick's a defensive coach. McDaniels ran the offense for years and now they don't have that. So it's like, who's calling plays? I've heard Matt Patricia sucks. And then I've heard Joe Judge sucks even worse. Do you really want those guys calling the plays for you? Or is Bill Belichick, is he going to say, sit back and I'm going to suddenly call the offense? It's just kind of, there's a lot of gray. And that's really, my first question. It's like, who's calling plays and what can you even expect out of that offense? I mean, I think Mac Jones he'll get a little bit better, but it's like, I don't know how much you can, because the things around him didn't really improve, right? The O-line got a little bit worse. And I just don't see the weapons out there. I mean, you're throwing to Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, Nelson Aguilar is still there. They add Tyquan Thornton from Baylor, who I believe everybody said was a reach at the time when they made the pick. So, I mean, it looks like, are they going to try to just run Damian Harris a ton, Ramondre Stevenson again? I don't know what the play calling is, but I mean, do you have any idea who's even going to be calling the plays in New England this season on the offensive side?
See, the coaching part in New England is so fascinating to me because they're going into the season without an offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. If you go and look at their actual coaching staff and see how it's listed, they don't have coordinators. They have Joe Judge as offensive assistant. There's obviously Matt Patricia. And then on the defensive end, you have Gerard Mayo and Steve Belichick as the linebacker coaches. So it's like, it's so fascinating to me to see a team going without an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator, regardless of if you have Bill Belichick at the helm or not. So it's like, who is going to call the offensive plays? What can we really expect? It's hard for me to have confidence that they'll be better. It's all about that Mac Jones year 2 leap, but you lose Josh McDaniels and then you're handing him off to Joe Judge. Like, I'm not a fan of Joe Judge. We saw what he did in New York, Daniel Jones. Like, granted, Mac Jones is better than Daniel Jones. I'm not going to argue about that. That's for sure. But I mean, what do you really do with that? It's really hard for me to see. And they're already like limited offensively. So then you're in a division where you got to beat Buffalo twice and you're going to play Kansas City and all these powerhouses in the AFC. Even if Bill Belichick has that defense humming and they're fantastic, I don't see how they can keep up with a Buffalo, the Chargers, Raiders, any of these high-flying offenses. I don't see how they do. They showed last year that they were incapable of stopping Josh Allen and the Bills when they really get going. So it's hard for me to see this New England Patriots offense be lethal enough at all this year.
Yeah, I'm right on with you. Joe Judge, yeah, he sucks. I mean, I don't even if you look at, if you say Joe Judge suddenly, I don't know, he drinks a potion and he turns into Cliff Kingsbury overnight and just has this sudden offensive scheme, then you look at what he's working with. It's just like, I don't like what's out there. I don't really like the O-line. I mean, the O-line, it's a little bit better than the weapons that are out there. I'm not a big fan of the weapons, having to rely on the Jacoby Myers of the world. Devontae Parker, good when he's available, but we saw with Miami, he just gets hurt. So it's like, what's he going to be? Nelson Aguilar, still there. I just don't know what to expect. And as you mentioned, they had issues with teams that can put up points, Buffalo, Kansas City, and I just don't see it changing. And I really can't even project their offense. I mean, if they're going to try and run the Jim Harbaugh special and just hand the football off a ton like they did last year, it could work, right? You'll beat your marginal teams. You might steal a game or two, but just long-term, like getting back to 10 wins or even jumping up to 11 wins, like I'm with you. I do not see it. And it's perfect time to segue into question 2 is, can Mac Jones hit that next gear in year 2, right? He was pretty good last year. But obviously Josh McDaniels, they kind of limited the offensive heavy run. They didn't really put a lot on Mac Jones. And I think this year you're going to see it kind of not 100% flip, but I definitely think without McDaniels gone, I think Bill Belichick or whoever's calling plays over there, like they're going to expect a little bit more out of Mac Jones to kind of carry the load and not have to hand the ball off a gazillion times. So do you think he'll take a big leap? Do you think he'll get up there with the guys I want to say like the Herberts, or do you think he'll kind of just stay, he'll above average starter? You think he'll just be an average guy? I mean, I think, as I said earlier, he'll take a little bit of a leap. I just think he's a smart guy. He has a good arm and a good decision maker. I liked his decision making overall last year, and I don't think that'll change, but the weapons aren't there. So I think he'll take a little bit of a boost, but I don't see him like exploding and just putting the team on his back this year.
Yeah, Mac Jones is the piece of the Patriots offense I'm actually the most confident in, weirdly enough. You nailed it. Like, really smart player, doesn't make a lot of mistakes. And I think there's something that we should remember heading into year two, that before his rookie year, right, he played a really long college season, won the national championship with Alabama. So that's an extended season. And then from there, you go straight into getting ready for the NFL draft, the combine, everything that goes into it. Then you finally actually get drafted. You're straight into like spring training, all that. There is so much going on just as a human, like as a football player in his life at that moment. That's a long 2-year stretch, right? That's not the same as playing a season. You get the off season, you can train, you can get into the system. So that was really long. And I think we kind of saw it towards the end. Like, I think there was a little bit of a lull. He picked it back up. That's just a lot of football and a lot of stress. So I feel like not only having a real off season, a year under his belt, and all those other factors, I think Mac Jones is going to be an above average quarterback. I do not think he takes a leap to where he's hanging out with Justin Herbert in conversations, but I think he'll be above average. And I think he's going to be actually one of the strong points for this New England offense.
Yeah, I respect it. I respect the work he's putting in. I mean, last season I kind of made fun of him a ton, calling him a fat ass and making fun of him, saying he has a beer belly. But yeah, I do respect the work. And as I said, I respect the decision making as a rookie. And I think all those things, picking back, he will definitely be, I think, a strong point for Patriots fans this year. Could go a little bit sour, but I think overall, with the progression that he will make and take a little bit of a leap, that Patriots fans, if Bill Belichick can somehow get a draft right and kind of fix some of the bad moves that he's made as a GM the past year, last offseason into this one, and kind of put a roster around him. I'd like to see them go out and try to get a legit number one. We see the game is changing, right? The amount of this, the I formations and the single backs and the 2 tight ends and the 3 tight ends, like that old shit's getting out. So I think it would definitely help them to maximize Mac Jones' rookie contract by going and getting him a better weapon if it comes, I don't know, probably next offseason at this point, because Bill, he's stubborn, right? He likes to ride it out. But yeah, I agree with you. And then last thing, they arguably had, I would say, when you will eventually work through the other teams, but they had the worst offseason in the division. Do you think they can somehow contend, for the AFC East? Do you think, say a freak thing, or do you think they can push Buffalo's buttons at all?
New England's funny. Like, I think they will steal a game or two. There was a point in time last year, and I think I brought it up on the pod, like, could New England be like the hottest team in the AFC? They had won like 4 or 5 games in a row. It was, strong defense, Mac Jones making smart decisions. And I think there'll be a point in time this year with it, like 1 month of the season, where New England looks really good. And we're going to be talking about, hey, is New England back? Are they a real contender? But I just don't think it's there. I think with the coaching staff and some of the players, they can look the part for like a month and a half ish. But I think throughout the full course of a season, there's a talent discrepancy, and the lack of coordinators makes me nervous. I think they can compete, possibly get a wild card. I just think it's a long shot. Like, it's not statistically likely. I think they're more likely looking at like a 7-win season with like a lot of good things to build on.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, I don't think they will really contend. As you said, they'll kind of give us that Carson Wentz Colts vibe where they look so damn good. And then, they find a way to just lose a couple games, and it's like, wow. Just too much to overcome. I don't think they added enough. And I think losing JC Jackson will kind of hurt them. You're trying to go back to guys like Malcolm Butler, who we've seen him run his course. And I don't like really what Bill Belichick did this offseason. He didn't do enough, especially with a quarterback on a rookie deal, where you kind of have flexibility to make moves and stack the deck as we've seen other teams do, even in this division that we'll get to. They didn't. So I think when I went through, I had the Patriots winning 8 games. It could be a flip flop. I could see them going 9-8. I have them right in there, that 8-9, 9-8 range. I settled on 8-9. But yeah, that's what I have for the Patriots. Any kind of last thoughts closing up before we move on to the next team?
Just to get the on the record official prediction, I do have them 7-10, so right behind you.
Gives them 7-10. I could see that too. So it's kind of, yeah, they're a tough team. But hey, let's jump into the next team in the AFC East. Another team that kind of, yeah, a team that has not really lived up to it, but they're kind of also building from the ground up. When you look at the New York Jets, Robert Saleh's entering year two. Zach Wilson at quarterbacks entering year two. As we were just talking about like 20 minutes ago before this, is yeah, they weren't coming off of the Tom Brady and Bill Belichick duo. You know, I mean, the Jets have kind of been my entire lifetime, literally, besides for the Rex Ryan, Mark Sanchez era, just building, right? Building and losing and losing and losing, getting laughed at, whiffing on picks. But this year, I kind of like what they did. Obviously, Mekhi Becton in there at right tackle is kind of a question. They kind of have a weird thing going on with him where the ownership in the front office is calling him a fat slob, saying he's overweight. So maybe they move him, maybe they don't. But when you look at the Jets, their draft wise, they grab Garrett Wilson, they grab Breece Hall. That's two weapons on offense that can jump in right away and help Zach Wilson. Breece Hall is already looking in taking that lead back role. And then they go with Sauce Gardner, obviously drafted him at 4 out of Cincinnati. I like that pick. Corners are obviously weird, as we were also talking about earlier. Will you get Jeff Okudah? Will you get Jalen Ramsey? Time will tell. I loved Sauce at Cincinnati. He was a baller there. And then really the steal was as well Jermaine Johnson from Florida State to add to that pass rush. That's a big thing for the Jets last year. I mean, their pass rush, their pass defense was awful. The secondary is awful, and their run defense was awful, right? So it's weird when you bring in a defensive head coach and have your defense be that bad. So, I mean, they're looking for guys like Quinnen Williams to step up. They're looking for production out of Jermaine Johnson, CJ Mosley, guys like that. They go out and add DJ Reed at corner from Seattle. They had Jordan Whitehead from Tampa Bay as well. So they made additions, right? They didn't just sit back and do what the Patriots did. They added to the roster. But what do you see looking at the Jets? I mean, we said it before. Do they really have any expectation? I like what they did, but is there an expectation for the Jets to win some more ball games this year?
I think within the fan base for sure, right? You look at their draft, which was very good. You just went over it. They have a ton of talent on paper, but like if you're not in that fan base, it's like it's really hard to project. Obviously, the Jets are starting from scratch, really, right? Their previous regime and all their players were not great. They never really got it off the ground, and the Jets just had to rebuild from the ground up. There's a ton of young talent, but it's really hard to bank on young talent, especially in the NFL, right? They could on paper be studs, right? But even then, if they are, I don't think we see that for 2, maybe 3 seasons. It's just really hard to project what the New York Jets do. I want to say they'll be better than last year because it's hard not to be, but I really need to see defensive improvement especially from Robert Saleh, right? We have a defensive-minded head coach in an offensive league. It really doesn't make a lot of sense to me at this point in time of why we're hiring defensive coordinators as head coaches, especially if they're not going to have a big impact on the defense. If Robert Saleh is going to be the head coach and he's not getting that defense like humming, what are we really doing here? Because to me, it's just holding back the whole team if we don't have an offensive-minded head coach in there in today's league, right? It's a passing league. It's all about big plays. We saw Jamar Chase as a rookie step in with Cincinnati, and all of a sudden they were throwing it way down the field. And it's an offensive league, so it's really hard for me to look at the New York Jets and if they don't show like large improvement defensively, sticking with Robert Saleh. I do think he'll have more than just this season, right? I don't think he's on the hot seat. They're building from the ground up. There's so many question marks with this roster, and they could be very good in a season or 3. But to me, I need to see big defensive improvement.
Yeah, facts. I mean, I had the Zach Wilson thing at 1, but I mean, we can go straight in with all the additions on defense. Do you see Robert Saleh cracking the code? We saw how good that defense was his last year in San Fran, you know, jumping up and down, going crazy on the sidelines. Can he find some of that magic in New York? Obviously, it was awful last year. They make a bunch of additions. Quinnen Williams, they need him to step up. I mean, that's a top draft pick that kind of, he's been good, but he hasn't really been great, hasn't lived up to it. And CJ Mosley as well, they went out, paid him a ton of money. He hasn't really lived up to it. So with those additions, I mean, can Robert Saleh crack the code, or will it kind of be another terrible year on defense and kind of plague them again?
I want to give them some credit and say that they'll crack the code and be better. But I want to see Jermaine Johnson be good, Sauce Gardner, and those other guys. Yeah, CJ Mosley needs to step up. Like you said, Quentin Williams has been good, but not great. It's like the talent's there on paper, right? But what can he do to bring it out? Because, yeah, when he was jumping up and down on the sidelines with the Niners, I mean, you got Bosa rushing the quarterback. You got phenomenal linebackers, good safeties. Like, that is a defensive unit. So much less talent. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure. It's really hard to project. I mean, I always say this: if your defense sucked that bad as they did last year, 32nd and I believe 29th against the rush, it's bound to get a little bit better. Like it just has to. They added some pieces with Sauce Gardner back there. They go out, get another corner, DJ Reed. So I'm going to assume it will be better than 32nd or 31st. And same with the rush. It's just hard to be that bad 2 years. And then it kind of circles back to, will their offense get any better? Obviously, they had Garrett Wilson, Brees Hall. I forgot CJ Uzama, who they got from Cincinnati, who helped them on a Super Bowl run, helped Joe Burrow out quite a bit. And it kind of circles back to, what will Zach Wilson be in year two? Can he take a leap? We kind of talked about Mac Jones taking a leap. This guy was drafted higher than Mac Jones, more is kind of expected. We've seen all the headlines that came out the past week. The man, he's kind of wild. He kind of got me. I'm kind of rooting for him now a little bit, to be honest. He's crazy, but can he take a leap? Because him being better can help out the defense, right? Because he was pretty bad last year, honestly, pretty damn bad last year. The whole offense was awful, and that kind of throws back more pressure onto your defense. When your defense is out there playing a gazillion snaps, they kind of wear down, and it's kind of I guess an adverse effect. Your offense is that bad, it kills the defense. So can Zach Wilson, or will Zach Wilson take a leap in year two? They've added pieces around him, and what will he do?
I don't like rooting against guys. I root for young quarterbacks, young athletes. Like, I root for them to have success. I say all that because I don't know what to expect from Zach Wilson. I was never really that high on him going into the draft. I never really thought he was going to be a star. He was not great last year. Obviously, a lot of things went wrong. I do expect a jump improvement, but does he jump to an average quarterback, above average? Like, I have a really hard time answering that question. I don't have a good answer for it. But like, if I'm following the same logic I am with Trevor Lawrence, because I have more faith in Trevor Lawrence, I expect him to bounce back. He has a real coach and a real system this year. Well, obviously, we will talk about it when we cover the AFC South. But like, if I'm following that same logic, I should have more faith in Zach Wilson to take a jump. But I don't think he's the same level of talent. There's just so many question marks to me about this Jets offense. I like the receiving core, though. I'll say that: Corey Davis, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson. I think the weapons are there. I'm going to say, yes, he does take a leap, but my cop out really is, I don't know like how far. I think he's probably going to be an average quarterback. And unfortunately, that's probably not good enough for the New York Jets.
Yeah, I think he will be better just because of how bad he was last year. He finished at 2,300 yards, 9 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That's kind of another thing. It's hard to suck that bad twice when, I mean, he very well could, right? I mean, we've seen guys like Josh Rosen just be that bad. Obviously, there was question marks when he came out of BYU, right? He had the one good, it was the COVID year where he was super good. And then before that, he really wasn't that amazing. And we kind of saw a lot of that stuff last year, but I'm going to assume that he takes a little bit of a jump. I don't think he's going to be anything amazing, right? Like, I think maybe a notch still below Mac Jones, who's kind of the similar trajectory. They're looking to take leaps. I think he'll be just below, but I just don't think he'll be 9 touchdowns, 11 picks bad. I mean, I think he'll get somewhere 20 to 22 touchdowns, maybe cut down. I mean, the interceptions, probably still throw around 11 or 12 of them, but I just don't think, I mean, 9 touchdowns and 11 interceptions is just, I had to wipe my eyes when I looked at it. I was like, Jesus, like, I knew they were that bad on offense, but it's like, that's a whole nother level of bad. And I just think with all the stuff kind of swirling, and you see like his own guys in the locker room backing him on Twitter, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it somehow adds a little bit of swagger where he's kind of playing, he can just play loose, right? The guys are with you now. Like, that man's wild. That man has, as they're saying, some dog in him. So I think Zach Wilson, he will play a little bit better. And I look for the Jets offense to kind of be a little bit better than it was last year as well with Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson. I like the Garrett Wilson pick. And I just think Zach Wilson will find ways. But I mean, as you said, it's hard to really bank on the Jets, because anytime you bank on the Jets, it kind of seemingly spins back and just like kicks you in the nuts, because they're just a weird team, dude. It's the New York Jets. I mean, they've been, as I said, besides for Rex Ryan and Mark Sanchez, they've been god awful like my entire lifetime. So, or maybe the Chad Pennington days.
Well, I mean, even the Mark Sanchez Jets, they just kind of they went on postseason runs. They are wild card teams. But I will say this with Zach Wilson, right? The team does fully back him. That franchise is bought into him. They're fully in on Zach Wilson. And I mean, you put a bunch of draft capital in him. The talent is there, right? So like, I don't see why not. Of course, they're into him. It's just, man, from as an outsider looking at the Jets, it's hard to predict. I'm not going to say it's going to be negative and they'll be bad. I think there is a legitimate chance they could be a formidable team, much better than last year, but man, it just like the range of outcomes for Zach Wilson this season to me is anywhere from like above average quarterback play to straight up benched at one point. So like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he could very well trot out another 9 touchdowns and 11. I don't see it, but he also doesn't he doesn't come off to me a guy like Mac Jones that's going to spend his offseason, or even like a Jalen Hurts who's going to work. Like, I don't think Zach Wilson is kind of that guy. I don't know. We haven't seen any working out, him slinging the rock, working with the teammates like we have seen with other quarterbacks. And yeah, we just haven't seen that out of Zach Wilson. We've seen some other headlines out of Zach Wilson this offseason. So yeah, you're spot on. The Jets as a whole is a difficult projection. And then my last little question about them, we obviously covered the defense, but I'll go to their backfield. They had Breece Hall in the second round this year, and then they had Michael Carter last year, who had 1,000 total yards out of that backfield. How do you think that duo will kind of shake out? And then obviously we were both talking like we don't think Michael Carter is going to disappear, but I definitely think that Breece Hall is going to kind of jump out early and he's definitely going to take the lead horse role in that backfield, but I don't think he'll fall off. I think Tevin Coleman, who I didn't even know he was on the roster till we looked, like I think he will be the dude who's like, you won't even know that he exists anymore.
Yeah, Tevin Coleman's interesting coming from injury. I think he's older. I don't think he's going to see a lot of playing time. But to the main point of the question, Breece Hall's nice, and so is Michael Carter. I think they're going to be a really formidable backfield. And for fantasy football, people seem to be pretty high, or at least season-long people seem to be pretty damn high on Breece Hall. I think the people who are drafting him pretty high are going to be disappointed with the role Michael Carter plays. I think he's going to have a bigger role than a lot of people expect. Breece Hall will be the main back, I still believe. He'll take majority of the work, but I think Michael Carter is going to be very fairly involved, about 35-40% of the snaps. And it could change throughout the year, right? If someone really takes a leap on the other player. But I think the Jets are going to be responsible for figuring out how to use both of them really effectively. And that'll keep them more fresh throughout the full season, obviously. But I think it's going to be a nice tandem. And as great or as good as Breece Hall is, I think Michael Carter is going to get way more of the workload than the average person expects.
Yep. It'll be interesting to see what Breece Hall can do. But I mean, we've kind of seen this new NFL mold where teams they're using the two backs, right? It's a lot of two backs, keep them both fresh and just give defenses different looks. So I do like that tandem as well. I mean, we'll wait to see what Mike LaFleur does with them. But yeah, I don't think Michael Carter by any stretch will just disappear off the face of the earth, because it's just kind of, we're seeing the new age of the NFL where teams are using two. Sometimes you look at the crazier teams like the 49ers who have 4 running backs deep and can get production out of any of them. So it'll be interesting to see what type of how they use them both and how good Breece Hall will come out of the gates. But I mean, we'll see a little bit in preseason. I don't think they'll run him into the ground in the preseason, but it's another one. It comes down to that Jets O-line, right? Can the Jets O-line and the play calling as well? Can the play calling get more, diverse, right? Get better play calling to create spots for their running backs to utilize both of them well. But all being said, that's it. Question-wise for the Jets, I mean, when I went through their record this season, I think they went 4-13 last year. I was generous. I had them going, I think it was 5-12 this year. They pick up, I think they'll get lucky. They'll luck out early in the season, they play the Browns. I think I had them getting that. I think it's like week 2, just because I don't expect Deshaun Watson to play suspension. And I just think when you go up against a quarterback like Jacoby Brissett, I don't care if it's Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I just don't think that's going to be enough, right? When your quarterback is Jacoby Brissett, I think the Jets, out of the gates at least, will be able to figure it out, and that's their like steal game. So they could be 4-13 again. I had them 5-12 just off of getting that win over the Brissett Browns.
I'll say this: if Robert Saleh trots out that same level of defense as last year, I think Nick Chubb could probably do it solo. Don't hate me, Jets fans. I got y'all 4-13 again. I talked about all this young talent, and I think they'll be better and improve. But like when I go through that schedule and I match them up against other teams, it's just really hard to see where they get wins. I think they get some down the stretch at the end of the season, but who knows? Prove me wrong, surprise me, Jets. I'm not trying to hate on y'all, but it's really hard to see much more positive outcomes. I got y'all 4-13.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Jets fan as well, you just want to see improvements out of the defense, see some young guys, see Sauce Gardner have a good year, see Jermaine Johnson have a good year, see Quinnen Williams live up to something, Garrett Wilson show out, Brees Hall, and then just see Zach Wilson take that next step, right? It might not equate to wins in the long run, but I still think they're a solid offseason away, right? Another draft, another free agency to keep adding to that roster. But I mean, by any stretch, they could, shock us, win 5 or 6 games, or they could be right down there 3 wins again. But it really determines what strides they can make on the field. I don't know if it'll equate to W's, but we shall see. But let's move on to the next team. Kind of lofty expectations. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins. The whole Brian Flores thing played out. He's out of there. They get Mike McDaniel in from San Fran. We really don't know. I don't know. It's hard to really project Mike McDaniel as a coach because Kyle Shanahan's an offensive guru, or they say so. And what role did he really have out there, right? I don't know how hands-on he was with that offense, but seems to know his stuff. I like what they did. They obviously, the big splash move of the offseason that caught everybody shocking was getting Tyreek Hill to put him across from Jalen Waddle. They also go out and get Cedric Wilson from Dallas. They had an awful O-line last year, so they added Teron Armstead 5 years. It was like $85 million. They loaded him up. You like that, right? When your O-line suck that bad, to go get a left tackle. What else did they add on this? The defense, it's honestly kind of the same. I mean, the Emmanuel Ogbah, they still have Christian Wilkins, Landon Roberts, Jalen Phillips, who they had last year. The corners, Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, kind of same on the defensive side. It's like, can they show up? And then the big question, obviously, with the Dolphins as a whole is Tua. What will Tua be? This is a big year for Tua, year 3 for Tua. And then I forgot to mention all the running back additions. They go out, get Chase Edmonds, they get Raheem Mostert, they get Sony Michel, they still have Myles Gaskin. So you're kind of already seeing that 49ers-esque running back scheme with that Mike McDaniel brought with him by having 3-4 guys back there that all can kind of take that lead horse role if somebody goes down. But before we jump into the questions, I mean, what do you see when you look at the outside looking in at Miami heading into this offseason? Exciting additions, I would say, at least with Tyreek to put him across from Waddle. But can Tua get the job done is the real question.
I am super excited to watch the Miami Dolphins play football this year, which might be the first time in my life I've ever said that. Yeah, you already see Mike McDaniel's coming over from the Niners. You hinted at it already. 4 running backs. You already kind of see that scheme going. Speed kills, right? Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Tua. For as many faults as Tua has, not the strongest arm, he's very accurate, right? And people want to talk about the Mahomes Tua thing because of Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, to me, can be just as effective with Tua Tagovailoa. I think some people would scoff at that statement, but think about Tyreek Hill, right? He doesn't need – obviously, he had over-the-top deep shots because his quarterback was Patrick Mahomes, but he doesn't need that. You can go back and look at a game where he played with Matt Moore when Matt Moore was quarterbacking the Chiefs, and I believe he went for 140 and a touchdown, maybe 2 touchdowns actually. You just need to get Tyreek Hill the ball in open space, and Tua is very good at that. Yes, it's going to be shorter, more intermediate throws, but Tyreek Hill can take it to the house, and he's going to take pressure off Jalen Waddle. I expect much more out of Jalen Waddle. Cedric Wilson's a great addition. I like Mike Gesicki a lot. And once again, the running backs, Chase Edmonds, and I love the addition of Raheem Mostert because he is so fast. When you put a formation out on the field and it's Mike Gesicki, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Raheem Mostert, that those linebackers are going to have a hard time whoever they have to cover, right? It's going to be real tough. So if the offensive line can hold up, it obviously improved, still not great, but much better. The Dolphins are fun. I think they're going to be a wild card team, actually. I'm super excited to watch them play. And just to touch on the defense real quick, I think the defense can be pretty good. They held up pretty damn well last year in a lot of scenarios because a lot of those games down the stretch where they won, Tua was not helping out the team offensively at times, and the defense really kept them in those games. So expect the defense to play well. To me, I'm just so excited to see what Mike McDaniel does with all these speedsters.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my big question right off the rip with Tua is this year's kind of the year, right? It's year 3. We saw year 1, he came in, he started 9 games, went 6-3, but it was kind of underwhelming, I would say. I mean, he obviously didn't really show, but he was coming off the hip injury, had 11 touchdowns, 5 picks, 1,800 yards. And then last year, 12 starts, 13 total games, 12 starts, 7-5. Completion percentage, obviously we see he's accurate, but his issue is stretching the field. He went up to 16 touchdowns, 10 picks with 2,600 yards. This seems to be like the year, right? When your front office goes out, they get you the offensive coach, Mike McDaniel. You got the running backs back there. They go out, get you a left tackle. He's a lefty, so it's kind of different, right? You would obviously like to see the right tackles covering his blind spot. But I mean, it's an upgrade on an O-line that was god awful, but they go out and get you weapons, right? They have you continue to build with Jalen Waddle, you get Tyreek Hill, you get Cedric Wilson from Dallas. So they're kind of putting it and they're saying, here you go, Tua, it's all on you. Year 3, if it doesn't pan out, they could very well be taking a quarterback next year, looking for a trade for a quarterback. Do you see Tua kind of cementing himself as the guy this year? And that's kind of a total package. He kind of has to stay on the field too. He's had injury issues from that hip injury at Alabama. He's kind of came into the league and got beat up a little bit, but yeah, will he show that maybe he is the guy in Miami this year with all the weapons around him?
I think he'll show that he's the guy, but let me add context to that. Because what do we mean by the guy? Like, I don't think any of us expect Tua to go out there and look like Mahomes or Herbert or Allen, right? We're not going to end this season saying Tua is the guy, he was throwing deep, all this other things. I think we can end the season saying Tua is the guy, clearly the starter for Miami. And I think it's the conversation is going to be more in line with like a Jimmy Garoppolo, who Mike McDaniel just had, in the sense of he can win you a Super Bowl. You can win a lot of games with them, but everything has to go right, right? Like the team has to be very good around him. You need good coaching. You need all that. And I think Tua is more in that caliber, right? I do think Tua is going to cement himself as a starter in this league, as the Dolphins' future quarterback for the foreseeable future. I'd be really surprised if Tua came out there and had a really bad year. I think he's accurate. I don't think he has to throw the ball deep. A lot of things I already mentioned. But it's like, to what degree do we think he'll be the man? I think he's going to be the man in the sense of like, this is clearly his football team. They're going to be good enough to win enough games to make the playoffs, like a Jimmy Garoppolo-esque with the Niners. But think of how the Niners season ended. They needed one big drive from Jimmy, and like he was atrocious when they needed him most. I think we could see something similar with Tua here.
When I say be the guy, I don't mean, I don't see Tua jumping out and being a Mahomes, a Herbert, a Joe Burrow. I don't see him getting to that level. He just doesn't have the arm, and I just don't see him. I just don't see him as one of them. When I say the guy, though, I mean, we're in year 3. Once you get into year 4, it's kind of that time of, do we pick up his 5th-year option? Do we start talking long-term? And that's kind of where I see it this year, is he has to be able to be, 1, available, and 2, make those strides with an actual offensive coach and weapons around him, and a little bit better of an O-line to kind of say, okay, we can look at picking up the 5th-year option. We'll look at a long-term deal. He can stick around in Miami, because as I said, if he has an off year, he's beat up again, they could look to pivot off, right? They could say, cut ties, we can go draft another quarterback. We see how teams go through quarterback,
Mm-hmm.
and they very well could. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think they did enough and added enough around him where he will be serviceable enough, right in that Jimmy G range. He doesn't have an amazing arm, but if you tailor the plays, which I think Mike McDaniel will be able, or he will at least attempt to tailor the offense to his strengths, use those running backs, kind of use that short intermediate passing game, which we saw last year when they started to do that. The connection with Jalen Waddle was ridiculous. And then you add two of those guys, gets even scarier because you have Tyreek and Jalen. Defenses can't stack the box. And then you don't even talk about Mike Gesicki, who is a legit tight end. And then the running game that comes from San Fran. It's tough to defend that team. If everything's working on all cylinders, it's like it's a scary team because you got to keep the safeties back for the burners. And that puts a lot on the team's front and the linebackers, right? So that opens up that zone run game that we saw work so damn well in San Fran with all the running backs. It's like it could be a scary year if they get that going. But then yeah, it's on Tua just to be better, be more available, and I think he will show that he can be the start, at least the starter. He'll get, I think, another contract out of Miami, if not kind of cement himself as the franchise guy, at least for the time being. How long that lasts, we'll see. But I think he will certainly be. I like that kind of comparison that you made with Jimmy G, kind of that range where he's not going to do anything amazing, but he can win you football games if you protect him and call the right plays.
Do you think a playoff appearance is enough for Miami and Tua this year? Like, say they're back in the playoffs and they lose their wild card round. Do you think like they're going to look at that as like a huge win on the season or a disappointment? And I ask that because, well, they've basically been a wild card team the last 2 years, whether they made it or not. Like it's really hard, right? The AFC is super crowded. So let's say they sneak in, but they get a quick exit. Is you think Miami's looking at that as like a win? I mean, rookie head coach too and everything. I don't know. I have a hard time with that.
No, I would say so because I mean, you look at them. If they get into the wild card round, that means Tua most likely stayed healthy for the majority of the year. Probably gave you 15, 16 games, which is up from 9 the first year, 12 last year. So that's a tick up, right? Because I mean, you get indefinite use. Teddy Bridgewater's the backup there. It's like I don't know how many games behind that O line he could win. So I mean, it kind of shows that yeah, Tua was durable. The offense worked. The defense got better. So yeah, I mean, I think a wild card appearance will be obviously a step in the right direction. We saw the issues that Flores had was he couldn't find a way to win a game from September to October, where he
So
would
weird.
notoriously go like 1-7, and then he would become ridiculous afterwards. I think Mike McDaniel will be able to win more than one ball game in that stretch. So yeah, I mean, I think at least for this year, if they make a wild card appearance, that'll mean that Tua kind of had a good year, stayed healthy on the field. And yeah, I think at least Dolphins perhaps would have to look at that as a W, I would say.
I can get behind that. I think when you go so long without being a real contender, I think just a little bit of success is good enough, at least for the time being.
Yeah. I mean, you look at that, if they get in there, that means they'd be what, seconds? I mean, being behind Buffalo is not really bad. I mean, they're kind of the Super Bowl favorite. We'll get into them, but I mean, that means you finished above the Bill Belichick team, and then obviously the Jets. I mean, it's a tough division when you're battling.
That's actually a good point because it feels like Miami virtually has no chance to win their division. Obviously, they have a chance. They have to go play the games, but like Buffalo is legitimately the favorite to win the entire Super Bowl. So it's like you're going into a season where it feels like you don't even have a shot at the division. Like right off the bat, you're going for a wild card.
Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of, yeah, that's the scary state. That it's funny how that division kind of flipped because it used to be like that with the Patriots, right? You start a season, you go through the offseason, and it's, oh shit, Tom Brady's there. Yeah. All right. How do we finish second and win 10 games, 9 games, get a wild card spot? Yeah. Cause now it's like that with the Bills, and it's tough for them. Yeah. Do you think, yeah, so obviously they put a ton of capital with this. I'll just tie both of these questions in together so we don't spend 4 hours talking about Dolphins football, but they added a lot of running backs. They build up, they go out and get Teron Armstead. Do you think that duo with the running backs and the addition to the O-line, do you think they'll be able to get that working correctly to kind of take pressure off Tua? So Tua, because Tua, one thing similar to Jimmy G is he's not a drop back 35, 40 passes a game guy, right? If you keep him right at capped at 25, I'd say maybe 28 if you're willing to get crazy on the stretch. Can they keep that going? Can they get the run game going? Can they get that O-line going to kind of take pressure off of Tua so it's not all on Tua, because there's a lot of pressure on him to begin with in the make or break year with everything that they added. So, I mean, do you think Mike McDaniel will be able to find production out of that running back? That I guess it's, yeah, I'll say trio. I don't know how much Myles Gaskin will be involved, but with Edmonds, Mostert, Sony Michel, and then the addition up front, will that group be able to take pressure off of Tua this year?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the better running back rooms in the league. And I think you're going to see him run into the left behind Armstead quite a bit. I expect Mike McDaniel, who, just spent his time with the 49ers, and Kyle Shanahan, who has that phenomenal zone running scheme. I expect Miami to use a lot of the same things. And you have Raheem Mostert, who's already familiar with that system. He played with the Niners as well. I'm expecting some pre-snap motion, 2 running back sets, some Chase Edmonds catches in the backfield. And yeah, I really do expect this running game to really get going. It's going to open up Waddle, Hill, Gesicki over the middle. Yeah, I fully expect this running game to be in the top half of the league, the top third of the league, I would say. I think there's a lot of talent here.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you. I kind of like everything. I mentioned it like the point ago, how they just have the speed on the outside so the safeties can't cheat up, which just frees up the box for that running game to get going. You mentioned the pre-snap motion. So yeah, I like everything that they have going up until they take the field and maybe they look like shit. And I sound stupid, right? That happens all the time. I'm used to it by this point, kind of did it all last year. But yeah, on the outside looking in, I mean, a month, 2 months out from the season, yeah, I think it will be at least in the top half of the league with everything. And I like Mike McDaniel's brains coming from San Fran to use a lot of that. So I think it'll be a dangerous offense, and the running attack will free up a lot for Tua. So he's not getting planted on the ground every single week. Any kind of closing thoughts on Miami? I think when I went through and did their record, I had them finishing 9-8, I believe it was. They maybe could sneak out another game. I was being conservative, had them 9-8. I think that should be good enough for a wild card game. They'll finally crack the code, which will be a W for Mike McDaniel in his rookie year. And Tua as well. As I said, if they make the wild card, that means he probably stayed upright and healthy for a good majority of this season.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I have them 9-8. I could see him squeaking out a few more wins to 10, even 11. I'm excited for Miami football for the first time in my life, probably. I can't wait to watch them. I'll say this. Their bye week is week 11. They come out of their bye, home game against Houston, week 12. That should be a win. Then I think this stretch, this month stretch, week 13 through 16, they get San Francisco, the Chargers, Buffalo, all on the road, and then they get Green Bay at home. I think that stretch will make or break their season. I have them losing all 4 of those games right now and still finishing 9-8. So that's where I think they could squeak out maybe 10 or 11, assuming that the first half of the season went well for them. But yeah, I'm excited to see Miami and see how they put it all together.
For sure. I'm also excited to see Tyreek Hill down there, Jalen Waddle, just see how that group comes together as a whole. It's weird to be excited for Dolphins football, but they're definitely a team that I have circled that I will be checking out some of their games just to see that offense, because they have a lot of weapons, and it should be super fun to watch. At least fantasy wise, should be a lot of fun. But let's move on to the final team in the AFC East. It's obviously the prohibitive favorites, probably Super Bowl favorites, I would say easily. Yeah, my Super Bowl favorite, the Buffalo Bills, coming off of an 11-6 year last year. We all know how that season ended. Crazy shit overtime game in Kansas City. That was probably one of the best football games I've watched, but they come back with pretty much a similar look. Obviously, Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis at wide receiver. They swapped out Cole Beasley's gone. They had Jamison Crowder in there, but along the lines of that, they also drafted James Cook to kind of help that backfield. That's kind of that was an issue for them last year, was finding like a lead horse and a running game that they could kind of get behind. It was a lot of Josh Allen throwing, and then Josh Allen getting out of the pocket and going crazy and running around. But we saw what that did on the defensive side of the ball. They had Daquan Jones in the middle defensive tackle. The big one, Von Miller, comes over from LA. And then they drafted Kyer Elam from Florida at a corner to kind of help them out on the defensive side. So, I mean, the Bills, prohibitive. Favorites, it looks like they have everything ready to run it back and probably unseat the it's weird to say the Bengals, even though I was just about to say
Yeah.
the Chiefs. I literally was 2 seconds from saying the Chiefs unseat the Chiefs. It seems like they want to unseat the Chiefs for them because they continue to come up short against Kansas City. But yeah, what do you see outside looking in for Buffalo? And I'll drop just the first question. What do you think Buffalo's offense will look like now with Ken Dorsey calling the plays? Brian Dable obviously goes to the Giants as their new head coach. So, I mean, we don't know what the offense will look like. We hope it'll look similar. I imagine it'll look somewhat similar, but what do you see out of Buffalo?
Yeah, Buffalo is the heavy favorite in the AFC East, as they should be favorite in the AFC. It's hard not to love Buffalo, right? You hinted that their running game is lackluster. It was a lot of relying on Josh Allen. Could not agree more, right? Devin Singletary is still there. They draft James Cook, like you said. That's probably their weak point offensively, is their running game. I do expect an improvement there. And they still have Josh Allen at quarterback, right? He's still going to be moving out the backfield, extending plays. And that's the big secret weapon. Like, if Josh Allen can continue to be Superman, the sky's the limit for the Bills. And you brought up the offensive coordinator change as the question. To me, that's like their biggest, I guess, down mark from the offseason, like losing Brian Dable. Brian Dable was an elite offensive coordinator, phenomenal play caller. So I do think it's going to be a little bit different, but I think they'd be fools to move away from what they're doing, right? They still need the ball in Josh Allen's hands a ton. And I think, yes, it's different personnel slightly, but I think we're going to see a very similar offense. Honestly, I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but I think they'd be foolish to move away from what they were doing.
Yeah, for sure. I think they'd be a little bit wild. I don't know. I just look at Dable as a guy that kind of stabilized and built up Josh Allen. And I don't know. I'm interested to kind of watch how this season goes and see if the same level of trust is there between Ken Dorsey and Josh Allen. Because we obviously seen Josh Allen take a huge leap under Dable, and then how he started out the first year wasn't so great. And that ability to take that leap with Dable was quite the thing. As you mentioned, he was one of the best, if not the best OC. And that's why he got the Giants job, right? He kind of did wonders. But yeah, I guess my next question with Buffalo is, we've watched really our entire lives, I'll say at least my life, the Buffalo Bills having this underdog model, right? We're the underdogs. Nobody expects us, we're Buffalo and nobody expects us to win. We kind of have this bad luck, this and that. Do you think they will be able to handle the pressure of finally being the Super Bowl favorites? They've got to be. They're at least the AFC favorite. I don't know. They're overall the favorite for me. I don't really think they're kind of a level with everything that returned for them. They're definitely the favorites. So do you think that pressure could kind of get to their head? Obviously, rookie offensive coordinator. If things start to slide, how do you think they'll handle all the pressure being the favorites? It's no longer underdog Buffalo, right? It's no longer poor Buffalo. Buffalo's here. So how do you think they'll handle that pressure going into this year? Because it kind of wasn't there. Obviously, they had this team, but they weren't the favorites last year.
Yeah, you read my mind, right? I was going to ask you the exact same question, because this is the first time we see Buffalo right into a season with all eyes on them, right? Buffalo's going to get everybody's best shot, which is kind of weird to say because they didn't even make the conference championship last year. I mean, we all know what happened, right? They were 13 seconds away, just a ridiculous game. And I don't want to just straight up say they beat the Bengals because the Bengals beat the Chiefs, but it would have been a competitive, close game, right? So I want to say they're going to respond really well. I think Josh Allen understands there's a target on his back. Stephon Diggs understands. I think like the leaders of that team know what's up going into this year. It's hard to look at the Chiefs. The Chiefs got worse than they were last year. Not by like huge margins. They still have a ton of talent. They could easily win the Super Bowl or the AFC as well, right? But their odds are worse for a reason. And I think Buffalo's, like you said, returning everybody. They were 13 seconds away. I think everyone feels confident about them being the favorite, which is wild to say when you break down the other AFC teams. The AFC is so loaded with young quarterback talent. But at the cream of the crop right now is Mahomes and Allen. And I'm going to go with they're going to handle the pressure well. I think Josh Allen is just that guy, right? And he's shown us back-to-back seasons now of being great. And I think he's about to give us his third in a row. It's just, these dudes are hitting their peak powers, like athletically, right? They're going into their primes, all these young studs. It's just hard for me not to buy Buffalo. I think they could be a little worse record-wise because there's a target on their back and everybody's going to give them their best shot. But I think that's going to be a result of the other teams being on their A game and not Buffalo being worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, if you're a team wanting to get at Buffalo, you're going to want to get at them, I don't know, right out of the gates, right? If you're like the Rams who faced them week 1 at home, right, when they're kind of working out the kinks, Allen and Ken Dorsey, they're kind of figuring things out. But I think as this season goes on, I'm with you. Josh Allen's that guy that I just don't think he gives a damn. He just goes out there and plays football. I don't really think he feels the pressure of needing to do anything. And it kind of this team gives me that vibe of, I want to say it's the like 2013 Spurs where Ray Allen hits a shot and they come back the next year just pissed, ready to go, and really they want to show everybody. I think that's how they feel, right? They feel like they should have at least been in the Super Bowl. I'll be honest, I would have had them beating the Bengals. No disrespect, I like Joe Burrow and those guys, but it was just kind of one of those things, right? Freak game losing that. And I think this year they're coming back with a vengeance. I don't think the pressure will get to them at all. They added what they needed to add. They go out, draft a corner. They still have Tre'Davious White back there. They add Von Miller to go attack the passer to go along with Ed Oliver and Greg Russo. They just continue to build up that roster, and I think they're coming back with a vengeance this year. So I don't think the pressure will bug them one bit. They could have some kinks out of the gates, maybe first month of the season, but after that, I mean, the Bills are going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and it's like the Bills additions, like they addressed all their weak points. The second they lose a position, as in Cole Beasley, they get Jamison Crowder, Isaiah McKenzie's behind him. Like you still have Jake Kumaro. So like they have depth and they're stacked everywhere. You laugh at the names, but like they can go out there and play for a game or two in the middle of the season when you need them. 100%. They have the depth and they have everything.
Wasn't Kumara the guy that Aaron Rodgers was like real big about?
Yep.
Like, yeah, that's why I was laughing. That's that part. But no, yeah, they added everything that you'd want to. They go out, even add OJ Howard for pennies. Obviously, he hasn't done much in Tampa Bay, but I think kind of Bruce Arians
freak athlete.
Yeah, freak athlete, had an unfortunate injury, and he also had a scumbag coach named Bruce Arians. So, I mean, you're not going to get a fair shot. We look at Ronald Jones, that's bottlenecked down there because of Bruce Arians. So I think they added, right? They got better, and it's scary to think that a team
RJ is a chief now.
Yeah, that was what was I going to say? I lost my train of thought. That was kind of, they were already one of the favorites last year, and now they come into this year, and that team that was on the fringe last year of getting there, and they get even better with their additions. So yeah, I mean, they're scary. The Bills, it's weird to talk about Bills football and say we're now scared of the Bills, but they've set themselves up so well. And Sean McDermott's kind of done a hell of a job as a head coach up there, keeping that whole ship together. And then my last question really about the Bills, I mean, there's really not much because they're just that damn good, but will they find a formidable rushing attack so it doesn't have to be all Josh Allen all the time? Can James Cook come in there, do a little bit? Maybe Zach Moss does something. Can Devin Singletary, can they find a guy, or can they find a tandem of two of them that can maybe just take, I don't know, a fraction of something off of Josh Allen's back? Do you think Ken Dorsey, I think at least out of the gates, maybe the first week or 2 or 3 of the season, they will try to run the ball a little bit more just to see what they have there. And then, hey, if it doesn't work, they'll flip it back and say, okay, Josh Allen, you go win us every ball game. And they'll be cool with that. But I mean, what do you see out of that rushing attack? Because they go out and use draft capital on James Cook. I liked him at Georgia. And so where do you see with those guys in the backfield? Because as we said, that was their only weakness, was their running game.
I want to say it'll be improved. I don't want to say that they're going to magically find, like, Singletary or Cook's going to magically be a 3-down lead back and like a workhorse. And I don't think that's what you were getting at either, right? I think you're asking basically like, if by committee, will they be effective enough? And I'm going to kind of give a cop-out answer. I'm going to say yes, but because Josh Allen is part of that committee, which I know the idea is to do it without Josh Allen, right? But when you add Josh Allen as he's also a threat on the legs, I think they're going to have enough on the running game. And I do think they'll have a game or two this year where it's just like Singletary and Cook go off, but it's probably against more poor teams, not the better competition. But I'm going to say as a committee, they're going to have enough, but that committee includes Josh Allen.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, we saw the Patriots literally couldn't stop Josh Allen scrambling at one point last year. So yeah, I kind of didn't factor in his legs. Yeah, the running back position's been a little bit lacking, but when you kind of get that third horse out there that literally touches the ball every possession, and Josh Allen that can kind of take the burden off, yeah, that's fair. I would just like to see how if they can get something out of them. And I don't think they'll switch to bang, just like Patriots, we're going to run the football 30 times a game at all, because Josh Allen's that good, and you're better if the ball's in his hands the majority of the time. But it'll just be interesting to see how they use those running backs, and if they'll even care to try to run the ball a little bit more, or they'll just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Because it really didn't cost them anything last year. Just some bad luck costed them last year on the defensive side. That's really all the questions I have on the Bills. I think when I went through their record, they went 11-6 last year. I had them picking up 1 W. I had them finishing 12-5, good enough to easily win the AFC East. Obviously, it could flip flop, but I just didn't want to go crazy in the preseason. We don't know what's going to happen throughout training camp. We don't know what's going to happen in preseason. So I kind of went on the conservative side with them, but they'll easily win the AFC East and they will be primed. But I could easily see them jumping up 13, 14 wins if everything, works out how they would hope.
Yeah, I'm not far behind you. I have Buffalo 13-4, easily winning the AFC East. And I think they'll be a number 1 or number 2 seed in the AFC. Once again, they're the favorites for a reason. Sky's the limit. It just feels so backwards, right? I'm so excited for Buffalo Bills football and Miami Dolphins football. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, facts, dude. You're spot on. I never would have thought in a million years that I'm getting excited to watch Miami Dolphins football and Buffalo Bills, but we're in that time where it's just that crazy. You kind of got any closing thoughts on the AFC East before we kind of wrap this thing up and get out of here? It's kind of weird. We're back here, but it's an exciting time.
I'm just super excited for the season. So happy to be back recording again. Happy to get back into a routine. And yeah, actually pretty excited for AFC East football, even when it comes to the Patriots and Jets. I think there's interesting aspects about all these teams. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting to see how the kind of middle of the pack in that division works itself out. Can the Jets sneak up? Will either the other two, will the Patriots or Dolphins falter? It's all stuff that we kind of will wait and see. But I mean, that's going to be a wrap for today's show. Thank you all for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment. If you have any suggestions, drop them. If you like this new format that we kind of ran with, I'm kind of iffy on it. Could go back to the old one from last year, but please just drop a comment, tweet at us at Take3 Sports. As always, the Spotify link will be in the description of this video. We will upload simultaneously to Spotify for your audio only listener, and we appreciate it. We'll see you guys next week for the NFC East.